Welcome back to Asia Tonight. Business News continues now, and hopes for an easy post-Brexit trade negotiation between the UK and Europe have been dealt a blow. Just a few days after Britain's formal exit from the Union, Boris Johnson has insisted that the United Kingdom should not have to follow the bloc's rules in order to enjoy free trade.
There is no need for a free trade agreement to involve accepting EU rules on competition policies, subsidies, social protection, the environment, or anything similar, any more than the EU should be obliged to accept UK rules. The UK will maintain the highest standards in these areas, better in many respects than those of the EU, without the compulsion of a treaty.
And that response follows the release of the EU's draft mandate, which saw the bloc offer Britain an ambitious trade deal.
We are ready to offer a highly ambitious trade deal as the central pillar of this partnership, including zero tariffs and zero quotas on all goods entering our single market of 450 million people. An ambitious free trade agreement in services with wide sectoral coverage ranging from business services to telecommunications or environmental services.
Well, the EU has warned that it's all contingent on, and I quote, open and fair competition, as well as striking a deal on fisheries, but it's still being viewed as an olive branch that sets the future tone for trade negotiations. Now for the latest, Ollie Barrett joins us from London. Ollie, Mr. Johnson clearly shooting down what the EU hailed as a highly ambitious trade deal. Are you surprised?
Well, I think what we have to remember here is that these are both the opening gambits from two opposing negotiating teams. Michel Barnier on behalf of the European Union and Boris Johnson on behalf of the United Kingdom, both on their feet at the same time from Brussels and London, setting out their positions for the upcoming trade talks. Clearly what you would expect to happen in a normal negotiation is that what will end up is that we will find ourselves somewhere in between the opening positions of those two men, but it does mean that there is a pretty big gap between them at the moment. Boris Johnson making the point that the UK is not going to require the European Union to sign up to all sorts of British rules and standards as the price for a trade deal, and he insists that actually when it comes to employment rights, workers' rights, maternity and paternity rights, and in some other areas, he insists that actually the UK already has higher standards than the European Union does. But the EU is insisting that Boris Johnson has effectively already pledged to go along with what are called level playing field rules as part of the political declaration which made up the Brexit deal that he agreed towards the end of last year with the European Union. So this is an argument that is just beginning, but which is set to run for the rest of this year.
Well, Ollie, Boris Johnson has big goals. He wants to unleash Britain's potential, doesn't he? So what will all this mean now for the ongoing trade talks?
Well, it is going to mean that they are going to be difficult. We knew that that would be the case. Boris Johnson says that if Britain can't be given some kind of Canada-style free trade agreement because the European Union are going to insist on level playing field rules and regulations that Britain doesn't want to sign up to, then he would be perfectly fine with what he calls an Australia-style trade deal with the EU. Well, Australia does not yet have a trade deal with the European Union, so what he effectively means by that is leaving without a deal in place at the end of this year, leaving the single market and the customs union of the EU. Boris Johnson, notably in his speech earlier, did not utter the word Brexit once. He is trying to put that behind Britain and he's trying to move on, but he knows deep down in his heart of hearts that actually Brexit is not done and dusted until there is some kind of agreement or otherwise in place with the European Union by the end of this year. So a tricky road ahead for Britain and some tricky negotiations to come too.
Brexit not quite a distant memory just yet. Ollie, thank you very much for that. That was Ollie Barrett there in London.